every Thursday, Dr. Rajeev Fernando, who is one of New York's top infectious disease doctors. He works in New York City and also out of Southampton Hospital on Long Island. He joins us to answer your COVID-19 questions, and he's on the phone with me again this morning. And good morning, doctor, and thanks for joining me.
Happy to be with you. Thank you.
All right, so let's start off with a question from Kathy in Danbury. Now, she says there's a lot of talk about getting back to work. Now, couldn't the virus spread again if we go back too soon? What's your thoughts on this?
No, I'm absolutely in agreement with that. Right now, it's a very difficult situation between livelihood and life. Mm-hmm. So life, of course, right now is really staying at home and maintaining exactly what we're doing right now, social distancing. You can clearly see states like New York have benefited out of this. And it's really important to continue this whole process. That's the only way we're going to keep flattening the curve. A lot of times people think it's, you go up on the curve, you hit the peak point, and once you're heading down, it's all over. Just get back to usual life. But unfortunately, that's not the case. The infections are going to continue, but it's a slower pathway down. Now, if we don't continue social distancing, we're going to head up for a second peak, which a lot of people are asking about, a second wave. And that'll happen if people just aggressively, just stop social distancing. For example, the mayor about 3 days ago had said, the mayor of New York had said, the worst is over. And immediately the next couple of days, I'm seeing the traffic, which the New York City traffic just went up exponentially. So people are getting out there. I think it's important not to be complacent and just to keep doing what they're doing right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I noticed there, obviously, the week before, everybody's talking about it's going to be the worst week ever and all this stuff. And now they say, oh, well, we've hit the peak, we're plateauing, and then everybody kind of lets their guard down. But if you look at your history back in the pandemic of 1918, that's what happened. The summer came and everybody thought, okay, it's over. And then the fall came and it hit them again, worse than the first go-round.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that is certainly something that can happen here, but it's really important. If we continue social distancing the way we've done over the past 2 weeks, I think we're in good shape.
Okay, we move over to Linda, who's out in Mayapack. She says, we already know that schools will probably be canceled for the rest of the year, but what are the chances of kids going back in the fall if there's still no vaccine?
It's a great question. Kids are always vectors. When they go back, as we see so far, kids are not infected with coronavirus, but they're very frequently they're carriers. So very frequently, whenever you're talking about a lockdown, one of the first things you do is really shut down the schools. Vaccines are not going to be available for a while. I know this is the fastest vaccine licensing process that I've ever seen before. They're quickly into different phase trials, and they're moving very rapidly to develop these vaccines, but most definitely won't be ready for the school year. So it's very important to keep watching, and I don't have an answer for that in the sense if kids really need to stay out of school until we figure this out. It's not safe right now.
Okay, now this next question is for me, Doctor. I heard just this past week that we may not be able to get to sporting events, concerts, things like that until the fall of 2021. Do you think it's going to be that long before we're able to gather in large crowds like that?
I think one thing, when you're talking about 250, 300 people for a wedding and even more for concerts, I think it's just changed our perspective forever with regards to even simple things like the coronavirus has changed things forever with, simple handshakes. And people are going to be a lot more cognizant of this when they're gathering together in crowds, that they can, meet people with asymptomatic infections. I can't tell you whether that's 1 year away, but I certainly think the industry, the entertainment industry, the social events industry will want to bounce back quicker. But I'm actually on one of the panels to develop guidelines to how to get back to events very safely. So they'll have to be a lot more. We'll have to be a lot more cautious, work very aggressively with the healthcare department, and even for things like destination weddings, just plan an alternative if something comes down. For example, in Russia about 2 weeks ago, as Europe was crumbling, Russia stood tall and said, we're the only one which doesn't have any infections. They gave away a lot of their ventilators, PPEs, and now it's entered Russia, and we're seeing a lot of cases over there. So we can never take our guard down on this kind of virus. So we just have to keep watching it very closely. But social distancing is still very important, but I do see events slowly get back on track.
Okay, well, as always, you are a wealth of information, Dr. Rajeev Fernando. Thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll talk to you during our segment next week.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, and stay safe, Connecticut.
All right, if you have a question for the doctor, you can hit me up at 1-877-303-1055, or just tap the call button on your mobile app, or you can just go to the chat feature on our mobile app and send those questions in. We'll be sure to ask the doctor next week when we have our segment with Dr. Rajeev Fernando.